Hello everyone and welcome to a wonderful game a lot of you recommended as soon as it finished. It's from round 1 of the Czech Extraleague and it features Jergus Pechac versus Vasyl Ivanchuk. Now we've featured Jergus some 4 times on the channel so far I believe, and every time it's one of the most interesting games you've ever seen. He was even featured in the 2023 Greatest Queen Sacrifice of 2023 against Max Varmerdam playing with the white. If you haven't seen it also, I do check it out. Will be the first link in the description below. And you have Vasyl Ivanchuk on the other side. For those of you who don't know who Vasyl is, he's a very, very peculiar player, one of the strongest to ever do it. Currently you can give him a full day to think on a move. He could blunder a piece, but you can also give him a blink of an eye. He could, see the matrix. That's how Chucky rolls. So all of the games he plays are extremely interesting, and I'm always very happy to cover them. So let's check it out. Jergus with white opens with pawn to e4. Chucky replies with pawn to e5. Sorry about that. And we have knight to f3. We have knight to f6 going for the Petrov defense, and knight captures on e5. This is the main way to counter it. d6, knight back to f3, and knight captures on e4. We have pawn to d4, pawn to d5, and bishop to d3. So this is the classical attack against the Petrov. Most common way to play against the Petrov. Knight to c6, we have castles, and bishop to e7. And here, the c4 is by far still the most played move. Rook to e1, second closest, and here we have, what was played here, knight b to d2. This is the third most popular, and this is what Jergus goes for. Ivanchuk trades, knight captures on d2, we have bishop captures, and now bishop to g4. Pinning the knight, we have c3, as there was the threat of knight captures on d4 since the knight is pinned, and castles king side. By Chucky, we have pawn to h3, bishop to h5, and now g4 does seem like a logical continuation, but it has never been played in this position. It would be maybe opening up your king a bit too much. Pawn to g3, played many times by many strong players, and now the unprovoked bishop to g6. Usually queen to d7 is played with tempo, as h3 has now become a target, but bishop back to g6 by Chucky. We have bishop captures, pawn captures, and now king to g2. Queen to d7 doesn't come with tempo, but also it kind of is the square to develop your queen to. You don't want to put the queen on a dark square. You might have some plans of bishop coming to d6, and maybe queen to c8 is possible. But again, if you haven't played it, or if you don't know if it works, maybe a harder decision than queen to d7. If it was a viable idea, of course Chucky would spend time here and consider it, but as he's still blitzing out moves, much like Jergus is, obviously queen to d7 is the move. And here we have bishop to f4. Known move is queen to c2, the only known move in the position, but after bishop to f4, which is the top move recommended by the engine, it is now as of move 15 that we have a completely new game, and I don't think it was pre-planned or something prepared at home, as Jergus did spend some 5-6 minutes deciding on the idea. And okay, bishop to d6. Ivanchuk immediately offers a trade of bishops, and Jergus obliges. Bishop captures, queen captures, and queen to, sorry, not d2, queen to d3. Developing the queen, preparing to, the rooks are now connected, preparing to bring the rooks into the game, rook a to e8 and rook a to e1. So very symmetrical rook setup. We have pawn to a6 and rook to e2. Preparing to double up on the e-file, of course Ivanchuk will not wait for that. We have captures, and now knight to d8. Preparing to bring the knight to the king side, and also maybe c6 to strengthen d5, or maybe just straight out pawn to c5, attacking white's center. We have pawn to h4, knight to e6, and knight to e5. Now a beautiful square for the knight, unless it can be kicked away with pawn to f6. Pawn to c5, trying to compromise the knight on e5 a little bit, but for the moment it is defended by the queen. We have pawn captures, and knight back to f3. We have knight to e4, also a beautiful square for black's knight. Rook to d1, you have to be careful. There's the maybe immediate threat of queen captures, although it's still not clear whether it would be good, because also the knight will be captured. So rook to e8, just defending, and also maybe threatening some nasty discoveries. Probably not, as the rook is undefended, but you never know. We have queen to e3, and now knight to f6. A discovery, not a very potent one. Queen to d4, maybe preparing pawn to c4, and rook to e2 by Ivanchuk. And this is a position that some people love to play, some people hate to play, the you know, everlasting question of the isolated pawn. Is it a strength? Is it a weakness? Can it be undermined? You know, will it be a strength later on? It's hard to say. For the moment, it definitely can be considered a weakness because you have to always have at least 2 pieces defending it. But Vasyl goes for activity instead with rook to e2. And okay, rook to d2, defending. We have rook to e4, attacking the queen. And now queen to a7, looking for adventure. We have queen to c6, defending the pawn for the moment, and knight to d4, attacking Ivanchuk's queen, and Ivanchuk plays queen to c4. And it seems like he's offering a pawn trade. Queen captures on b7 for queen captures on a2, but that is not really the case. The real idea is rook to e1, and then you're not going to be able to defend checkmate. For those of you who want to see it, we could also show queen e1, and there's no way to defend this. Whatever you play doesn't really matter. You have like one check and then nothing, but if queen b3, you just go for the check, and now, okay, you either get checkmated here or you go up the board, and then queen h1 check, king to f4, queen to e4 check, king g5, and now, well, many moves are possible, but knight to h7 is way cooler than queen to g4, as it also comes with checkmate. So after queen c4, knight back to f3 by Jergus, and now queen back to c6, defending the b7 pawn. Pawn to a3 and rook to e7, defending the pawn on b7. Maybe the queen can now again be activated, and Jergus finds rook to d4. He wants to play rook b4 and put even more pressure on that b pawn, and you cannot advance it. The rook on e7 is undefended. So knight to e4, and now pawn to a4. We have pawn to f6, stopping the knight from entering the position, and now rook to b4, putting pressure on that b7 pawn, but it asks the question, what about the a4 pawn? Vasyl plays knight to c5, and he just attacks it. So can it be defended? Can you play pawn to b3 here? If you can, everything should be fine. But then comes knight to d3, and this rook here would feel a little bit weird with all sorts of nasty ideas like knight to e1 check that Jergus will have to worry about. So he finds queen to b8 with check, king to h7, and now queen to f8. Attacks the rook while his pawn on a4 is hanging. Queen to d7 defending. This is by far the best move by Ivanchuk, as it comes with a very hidden threat. Pawn to h5, and now pawn to g5. And here we have knight to d4. A move I will mention was not played in the game, obviously, but pawn to h6, you know, it looks very nice, because if you capture with the pawn, then queen captures on f6, looks scary. And if you capture with the king, then, okay, queen to h8, check, king to g6. Is there anything here for white? The answer is not really. Obviously, why Jergus decided against this line, because he's already down a pawn, and he's going to lose another one. The a4 pawn is also hanging, and if by any chance you try to save it, then you just get destroyed. Look at this. Knight to d3, attacks the rook, and once the rook moves, there's this knight to e1 check, and after knight captures and rook captures, there is no defending this position. You will either go something like this, and then you will checkmate the white king, or maybe pawn to d4, and then queen d5 check. And either way, you're going to checkmate the white king. So after g5, knight to d4 was played, trying to go for some tricky ideas, but now knight to d3 by Ivanchuk, attacking the rook, and there's no good move here. You can't really save the rook. Probably h6 is your best bet if, you know, Vasyl does have 34 seconds on the clock, so you might as well complicate it all the way. But Jergus played rook to b6. He reached time control, but the problem is his position is dead lost here. However, Vasyl has only one move that wins the game, and he has 34 seconds on the clock, which of course you guys are not seeing, as I forgot to add the clocks to the interface. I will do that momentarily. Just give me a few seconds while you guys ponder on the position. There we go. Okay, so I hope you guys were, you know, you have paused the video, even though you didn't need to really pause it because I was doing nothing, so that's like pausing. But yeah, what's the idea here? The idea is knight to e1 check. I'm only tricking you. That's not the real move. That's a nice move, but it's not going to win you the game. However, I will show you why it's not going to win you the game, because after the king moves, how do you continue? The knight is guarding the f3 square. You can play knight d3, go after the f2 pawn, but now look at this. h6, and I mean, it is a miraculous way to draw the game, but I will still show it. Knight captures on f2, rook to e6, very tricky, and now after rook captures and knight captures, the queen cannot move due to checkmate. Knight to g4 check, you're going to move the king, knight captures on h6, and now what's the point? The point is queen captures on f6, freeing up the f8 square to deliver this fork. G captures, knight checks, and then, okay, knight captures on d7. Black is up a pawn, maybe black can do something with it, but, you know, should be possible to draw. But okay, after rook to b6, the move you had to find is not knight to e1 check, it's actually knight to f4 check, and now there's no defense. Knight f4 check is forced mate in 12, and Vasyl finds it with 34 seconds on the clock, and he also reaches time control now, so it's not a problem. Now if you don't capture, if you go anywhere, I mean, that's even worse, either a rook to e1 check or queen to h3 check, and if you go to f3, then it's a matter of a simple g4 check, only move king captures, and now rook to e4 will be checkmate, so that's not going to work. So after knight to f4, we have g captures on f4, and now queen to g4 with check, king h2, and now you should play rook to e1, but you know, I'm pretty sure Vasyl was thinking, okay, you know, even if I've miscalculated something, I'm gonna grab these two pawns and then I'm going to continue my variation because it doesn't change anything, but maybe if I've miscalculated something, I'm still going to be up 2 pawns. So I think that's probably why he captured them. Queen captures king g2, queen to g4 check, king to h2, queen captures on f4 check, king g2, queen g4 check, king to h2, and now he plays the you know, winning move, rook to e1, which could have been played without capturing these pawns, but you know, it's just how Chucky plays chess. And after rook to e1, it was in this position on move 46 that Jergus Pechac resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So the reason is, well, the reason why it says that after that knight to f4 it's made in 12, because you can prolong the game. Like if you play a normal move, like a normal human move, let's say rook captures on b7, then it's a matter of a simple queen h4 check, king to g2, queen to h1 with check, let's say king g3 and rook to g1, and it's going to be checkmate. But you know, it's said like a mate in 12 because you can play on normal moves like knight e2. Okay, we stop checkmate, so black has to waste a move capturing the knight, then you sacrifice the queen for nothing, but it will prolong the game. That's why it's a mate in 12. King h6, rook to h7 with check, you sacrifice everything, and only now do you get checkmated, like queen g4 check, king to h2, a queen to f3 or something, you know, just going for any of the checkmates, and whatever you play with black here doesn't really matter, like a5. Sorry, with white a5, rook to h1 will be checkmate. But yeah, Jergus, of course, did not wait for that. After rook to e1, he resigned, and a beautiful, beautiful victory for Vasyl Ivanchuk with black against this, well, very, very, very strong and very analyzed throughout history variation of the Petrov Defense. So this was in round 1. In round 2, he drew against David Navara, I think, who is, I mean, an incredible player. So Chucky playing good chess, very happy to see that, and we'll be keeping an eye on this tournament to see what he does next. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Stephen Bennett, Robert Arathun, Christopher Thompson, Rupert Miles, and Jeffrey Johnson for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. Really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.